Yep, I'm Matthew Kemps with Lone Wolf Realty Group at Spyglass Realty, and we have next to me.
Jennifer Geisheimer, also with Spyglass Realty and the Lone Wolf team.
And Matt Kirschling with Gold Star Mortgage. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that you're talking into that mic.
Yes, sir.
You can move it so then you don't have to lean over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better?
The whole
Better?
idea. So I tell this to people. The whole idea behind the headphones is so that you can hear what you're going to sound like during the recording, because this is exactly what it'll sound like.
Okay.
So if I'm all the way here, you can kind of see how that's going to create more editing issues.
Hashtag Russ.
Yeah. So we have a lot of different people, not a lot, but we have a few other like shows that do their, they do their podcasts here, and then I'll do the editing for them. And there's a couple of them that refuse to wear headsets because it's not as cool looking, and their podcasts require a lot more editing because they're speaking to each other and they can't hear how it's going to sound like in regards to the recording. So I always tell people that's why, like, when we have these on, it locks you in. Also, sometimes people can get noisy out there. We've got shout out to Skylar with Spyglass Realty, one of the loudest cold callers in the business.
Louder than me.
Yeah, and that's saying something. So let's focus on our main guest here, Jennifer. So currently signed on with Spyglass, was working with a smaller brokerage. Why don't you go ahead and just get right into it? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And
Sure. Yeah, I got my license about a year and a half ago, and was with a smaller boutique brokerage. Was successful over there, and thought, how can I increase my success and really go from good to great? Something that I really wanted to focus on was going to be the marketing, the back end, the CRM, and how to tie the presentation all together very well. So I've known Matt for about a year now. We sat down and met, and he showed me what a lot of the tools are that he's using, and I said, "Wow, how do I get into that?" And here I am.
unreal. What made you decide to get into real estate? I mean, a year and a half ago, that was like the best time to get in, right?
Like
It was
the worst.
so good. It was so good. My husband and I moved to Texas from Colorado in 2019. My
Okay.
husband is a real estate agent as well as a small custom home builder. He is licensed out in Colorado and said, "Hey, you should get your license in Texas." And I said, "Well, I don't know. I'll think about it." And I thought about it, and I thought, "Okay, yeah, let's do this." So we've been in the construction space for quite some time. We've flipped houses. We've had some investments, and now he's a builder and I'm an agent, and it works out well for us.
Right on. What's been the big differences between the two brokerages? I mean, only a year and a half, so can't be, can't be that obviously detailed. But what's the major broad stroke differences you notice?
I really appreciate the availability of the team. I've learned a ton from marketing perspective, from the CRM side of things, just keeping it very tight and the presentation style. I think the hands-on training and the availability from everybody on the team, I am really grateful for. So I feel like there's a lot of skills that I bring into the real estate world from previous past work experiences. And if I can take those and gas that with the right tools, resources, and people around me, I'm excited for it.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been with Lone Wolf for how long now?
About 3.5 weeks.
Okay.
Yes.
What are some of the surprises that you've seen, that you kind of, I think when we get into any kind of, role or position at any kind of brokerage, there's expectations. Is there anything that you were like, oh, wow, I didn't even expect that? It was kind of like a exciting thing that wasn't really talked about?
Something that I found very beneficial is I have a current listing on the market. It's a luxury property, and so being able to kind of step in and say, "Help me advertise this listing." The graphics team was fantastic. The photography team was fantastic, and then all the back end pieces to say, "Hey, listen, how can we get this information out to the right resources?" And that's not just on the MLS. That's sending out mass emails to different agents, talking with lenders to optimize the different strategies that we can do to help sell this property. And so that for me has been extremely beneficial. I can equate it to maybe going from a Samsung to an iPhone.
Okay.
I feel like real estate is still real estate, but it's a lot more, a lot of different technology pieces that I am getting acclimated with, and I'm
Just
excited
a better
for it.
operating system.
Better operating system.
Got it.
Gotta get Matt off the Android.
I've been on Apple, man. It's yeah. I'm not even gonna touch that. I'm not even gonna touch that. Green texts.
Green bubbles.
Should be freaking illegal.
Right. Yeah. So again, going back to real estate and instead of Matt trying to trigger me, um, one of the things, so we met, obviously we met before this. And one of the things that you said to me that I kind of wanted to get out there, I always talk to people that we interview. And one of the things that we focus on is like, who's the ideal client, because not everybody seems to resonate with the same client. And furthermore, some people are just better at dealing with certain types of people. And I know for you, you had kind of given me an idea of exactly who it was that you felt you connected with the most. And I just kind of wanted to ask you on air so that people who are watching this get a feel for who, not that you wouldn't work with other people, but who seems to be the ideal client at the moment.
Sure. So for me, I have a deep love of people and I have a deep love of relationships. And so for me, it's really just the people that I currently do life with, right?
Mhm.
Our friends, our neighbors, the people that we go to church with, the people that we spend time with, our kids' sports teams, those types of friends. That's where we spend our life. That's where we grow together. And so that's a huge passion for where we do life with people.
Mhm.
And so obviously that's an area that we continue to grow relationships. And then also there's referrals as well, right? We've got families and friends that refer other people in. My husband and I are both from different states, so we've got a lot of folks moving to Texas. We moved here from Colorado, so anybody coming in from Colorado, please give me a call.
There you go. Not a lot of people leaving Colorado, but yeah, always good to make that shot out. I know one of the things that you had said to me was that you felt like you kind of had a little bit of a knack for, just kind of listening to what some of the people in your life are saying, and that, people seem to resonate with you to kind of confide in you with certain scenarios and situations. Is that just an innate thing that you have, or how did that come about?
Great question. I think that I really genuinely enjoy people and understanding who they are and where they're from. And I think that people will confide in you and share life with you when you make them a priority and listen to them. And so
I
when you
like
don't
that.
make the story about yourself, but you're really truly invested in somebody else and what their goals are, I think that brings a sense of trust and it really deepens the relationship.
I would agree. I would agree. I love having you on here because, again, being fairly new in the grand scheme of things, one of the things that we've been talking about for almost a year now are these NAR lawsuits and everything along those lines. And most people have a lot to comment on it because they've been in the business for a really long time. And so they have a mindset that's based on, the way things were before the changes. How has this affected you, if at all?
Good question. I think it's all about how you present it. And I think if you're talking with some people, they go, oh, yeah, I kind of heard something about it, but I don't really know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you keep it simple to real estate has always been negotiable. Some of the paperwork has changed, and we do paperwork differently on the front end as far as making sure there's other additional documentation on the front end. That way, there's no surprises to anybody on the back end. Then we move forward with the process that we've always had in the past. And you keep it simple for them, and they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then you just keep on going.
I love it.
She has been doing this for a year and a half.
So, you've also made mention that your husband has been building some of these homes and doing all of that. Gives you kind of a unique opportunity to capitalize on some additional listings. How does that differ from, you're selling a home for, well, ultimately you and your husband? How does that differ from selling a home when you're dealing with somebody who's listing their own property?
Sure. So, right now I work for my husband as I'm selling his property, and he's a tough seller. So
Right. That's kind of where I
to
was
deal with-
going. So is it easier or harder, you think?
Yes and no. It is easier and harder.
Easier to get the appointment, harder to deal with the client?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
Got it.
It's great that we can be nimble to make decisions together quickly, and he understands the business. And so when we're making different marketing decisions, we can move forward relatively quickly in that capacity. And at the same time, when you're working with other clients, really understanding what their needs are. So I feel like I've got the inside track to what the husband's needs are for selling current listings, but other people have different needs. Sometimes it is they're on a time deadline. They've got to move cross country. Sometimes it's, hey, we've got to be in a certain proximity to a school or a work. And so just really understanding what the need is to present the best possible solutions for those clients.
So when we had originally gotten on here, one of the things that you'd made mention is, I went up to Cedar Park to visit you. Now you're down here in South Austin to visit me. Is there a particular area that you prefer to focus on in the Austin area, or are you just willing to go anywhere?
Great question, Matt. So we live in the Georgetown Liberty Hill area, and that is where we spend a vast majority of our time. That's where I would say that's where our wheelhouse is really going to be: Georgetown, Leander, Cedar Park, Liberty Hill, in that northern Wilco area.
Okay. That's it. Okay. But I would envision that if anything is outside of that parameter, you've got an entire team that is going to be able to help you with that and make sure that you guys have coverage of not only, northwest Austin, but the entire greater Austin area.
Yes, 100%.
Fantastic. Mr. Kemps, you got anything you want to cover here? You've been awfully quiet.
I'm just here listening. More on the fact that just morally impressed with how successful and your understanding of real estate with only being in the business for a year and a half. Yes, I understand there's a backstory that you've had with Drew and everything else, but I can just say I'm super, super impressed with your knowledge of how to handle clients. I know it comes from a medical device background in sales, but
Is that right? Tell us about that.
I started in medical device probably close to 20 years ago. I don't want to date myself, but spent many years in different parts of the country selling different medical devices, was on different sales teams, led different sales teams, and I think it really grew a great foundation for customer service and creating value, and I really enjoy it. So.
I think that was one of the things I identified when we met was a lot of times I unfortunately meet with real estate agents that I feel are not very sales savvy, and they're hoping that they're going to be able to make it in this business by just kind of, I don't know, being cool. I don't know what it is. But that was the one thing I identified about you was that you've obviously done some sales training, not that you're not trying to help people. That's part of it. But I can also sense and see that there is that, just that sales bone in your body per se, which I think is super important, especially in the market that we're currently in right now, where we've seen a lot of volatility over the last few years. A lot of clients have a ton of questions. There's a lot of hesitancy for one reason or another. And I think when you are sales savvy, it does give an opportunity to have, maybe what some would consider to be tough conversations.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. And thank you for the compliment.
Of course. One of the other things that I always try to touch on, when I sit down with anybody, especially in the real estate side of things, what seems to be the biggest pain point? I mean, a year and a half in right now, we've switched brokerages. We're 3 weeks in. You've got a lot more going on than the average agent as far as the home selling and everything. What seems to be a big obstacle that either that you're currently experiencing or one that you kind of have overcome?
Well, I think coming into when I decided to come into the real estate space, there was somebody who made a comment, wow, and you're getting into the market, it's really not doing so great. And so my comment back to that was, I can appreciate that, but that's when you start to build the foundation. That's when you start to build the processes.
Sure.
And if you can get your foundation, your processes down right, then when things do pick up, you've got a great system in place to handle that. And so I think from the last year and a half, kind of understanding what that process is and coming over to Spyglass to really kind of build that back end, we're obviously on the precipice of potential changes. Obviously, there's an election coming up, and that comes with a whole host of other things. So while I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, we're thinking, but we just kind of want to see what's going on with the election, you can't change what's happening in the environment around you. You can just be ready for folks when they're ready to come back and have that dialogue with you. And so I think a lot of that is just continuing to build and nurture relationships. And then when the time is right, for one reason or another for folks, I think that's the position that I've decided to take as far as deepening relationships. But that has been kind of the thing that has been out there is, okay, well, what's going to be going on with rates? I know that we're potentially having some news here in the next week or so.
Wednesday next week, the 18th.
watch party.
Yeah.
Matt, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, I've made this prediction quite a bit. I mean, I'm going with we're definitely going to see a 50 basis point rate cut in September. I think the Fed is even a little bit behind. So normally, there was a lot of talk that they were going to do a 25 basis point rate cut, but I think they're going to have to do 50. I think that if it wouldn't create fear, I think they would probably even consider doing more. But I think 50 basis points is going to be, right in that sweet spot of getting a move on with some of the easing, but also not doing enough to where people are like, wait a second, is this worse than we thought? From a recessionary standpoint, I'm leaning on the side of whatever the opposite of a soft landing is going to be. But that I wouldn't, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% there yet, but I'm 100% confident that a 50 basis point rate cut is in our future on Wednesday, September 18th.
And what do you think that with that change that comes to fruition, how will that have a ripple effect across the real estate industry?
Well, we've already seen interest rates come down quite a bit over the last almost 8 weeks now. And, I think they're going to continue to do so all the way up until a rate cut. The irony is that, we're watching, I mean, I'm seeing interest rates even in like the high 5% range right now. And the average consumer, I feel like, is under the impression that like once the Fed cuts rates, that there's going to be like some automatic rate reduction. But that's just not how it works. So they're slowly baking in this rate reduction. We talked about this on our morning meeting. My fear is that any individual who is currently in a situation to where maybe they're, maybe they're not as financially well off as other people, or maybe they have credit issues. I'm very fearful that if that individual does not get under contract in the next 60 days, that they will be priced out of the market again. Because the Fed rate cut, most people don't like to admit that they don't understand things about the economy or money. And so once that Fed rate cut hits and it becomes, kind of mainstream media, people who are on the fence are going to start moving, thinking, okay, rates are down. And I'm totally cool with just, validating them if that's what they need in order to feel like it's a better time to buy. But I think we are going to see a shift in the next 6 to maybe as far as 9 months. With right now, we haven't really dealt with what I would consider to be like more well-to-do buyers. Most of those individuals are in their home. They've got rates that begin with a 2 or a 3. They're hanging on to their interest rate, in my opinion, more than their house. I can't tell you how many people. In fact, here's a validating thing for those that have been in the business for a while. I got a phone call from a client that I've been following up with for 2.5 years who wants to sell his home. He is tired of, their family's outgrowing it. It's in a neighborhood that he doesn't want to be in any longer. He has been waiting for interest rates to come down. He has like a 2.75% on his home currently, and he is waiting for interest rates to come down because he just could not stomach the idea of his rate going into something like the 5 or the 6% range. And he finally called me yesterday on Monday and said, okay, I can't wait any longer. I don't, it's just been way too long. I don't think interest rates are going to come back into the like 2s and 3s anymore. So now we just got to do something. And the only difference is that he's going to take a higher interest rate now with a higher purchase price than what he would have taken advantage of 2 years ago. Again, he's my client, so I don't want to, say, haha, told you so, but haha, told you so. It's just, it's basic. So going back to what I said in regards to Fed cuts rates, consumer gets confidence. The only thing that I am interested in seeing is like, it will free up some inventory, because if people are going to sell, kind of like my client that I just described, that, I don't think it's going to be like 2020 or 2021. Right. But I'm looking forward to it, just simply because I'm looking forward to dealing with what I would consider to be more of, when it was a straight up seller's market, it was really tough on me as a loan officer, because every time we're writing an offer, they want it done with no contingencies. They want to close in like, 10 to 14 business days, which is all very doable. But the one thing that most people don't understand is I control about 50% of how that transaction goes. The other 50% is controlled by the actual buyer themselves. And people just are so busy. They're so busy, they just can't do anything. They're just so busy.
Purchase of my life. It's so busy.
Right. So busy. And I got a vacation coming up, and I'm going to be out of town, and I got to pick my kids up. So busy. So that was really tough on me. And then when things kind of went to the buy side of things, it's a lot more validating for me, because, I'm important again, but I'm dealing with not the top tier clients either. So I am looking forward to going back to what I would consider to be a little bit more of a normal market, where we've got, somewhat decent buyers that are a little more realistic. And yeah, that's what I'm excited about. And I think it's going to really, I'm already feeling it kick off.
I also think we're going to get more quality of inventory.
Right. Well, and again, which is going to drive a more quality of buyer. I mean, some of the things that I've seen, and I feel terrible when I talk like this, but like, stereotypes are real. Like some of the things that I've seen is like, you've got a first time home buyer who's never bought a home before, who can barely buy a home and is finally like confident enough because they're hearing that it's a buyer's market. They're making these unrealistic requests, unrealistic offers, asking for insane amounts of concessions, or better yet, like, I want everything on the inspection repaired. Like, I don't need to explain it to you, but some of the things that I've seen over the last basically year, because it didn't start right away, but the last year, some of the things that I've seen with certain buyers. But I will admit, it's been interesting because right when this turned, I did have a few people that called me and they're like, we are ready to buy. And I'm like, oh, okay. What, because I always ask, what has triggered you to decide to buy? And I had a few buyers that were legitimately like, now that rates are up, we can actually find a home and write an offer and negotiate and not have to rush. And we would rather pay, like a 5 or 6% and do that than feel like we're rushed and everything at a low rate. And I just found that really interesting because, well, just like everybody else, I kind of think with my own wallet, and I'm like, I'd rather take the lower rate and negotiate quicker, but I guess I'm kind of desensitized to it where people do want to take their time. So it's going to be fun, though. I'm excited for 25, and I really think it's smart what you said, because as somebody who's trained a lot of loan officers, I think that if you're in a career for the long haul, which in real estate you have to be, identifying that getting in a slower market gives you the opportunity to learn what you need to do, create a solid foundation, and really capitalize on the market when it hits, because I've seen others do the latter where they come in and it's really busy. They close a reasonable amount of business, but they definitely leave money on the table because they don't 100% know what they're doing. I think for most people, if you ask them, they're like, I need to make money now. They would want to come in a busier market, which is why you see an influx of real estate agents in a busy market. But as far as what is best practices in the long run, I definitely think the way that you're doing it is best. I've seen agents on the lending side that I've trained, and the ones that come in at the good time, like I said, not only do they leave money on the table, but unfortunately, when things tighten up, they usually have a chip on their shoulder, and then they do even worse than some of the newer agents that come in when things are a little bit slower. So I like that you've thought this through. I think it's a good attitude.
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited for closing out the rest of this year and for 2025. I think having a strong foundation is only going to propel the success of business moving forward. So,
well, and it's also going to give you an opportunity to do better by your clients. And then the thing for me that I, once again, have seen is like, I watch newer agents race around and, I'll tease them like I just teased the borrowers, like, oh, I'm so busy. I had an agent I called the other day and was like, literally says, I'm waist deep in appointments. Can you please text me? And of course, I pull this individual's production, and they've closed like 8 transactions this year. And the funny thing is like, on the surface of things, you think, oh, this person's just probably trying to like lie to brag about a scenario. But then when you really kind of like tap into it, they're probably telling the truth.
They just can't close.
It's not even about closing. It's just like they don't have any kind of blueprint on what they're doing. They're either chasing clients that aren't clients. They're either doing things that don't matter, or they're doing things inefficiently. And so here we are waist deep in appointments. And I remember when I was early in my career, his name was Craig Montgomery. I remember he gave a meeting, and I was one of the guys that was kind of doing the wrong thing, where I was coming in every single day at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I was staying till like 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I was pounding phones and doing all the things. And I was at the top of the food chain in terms of production, but I wasn't like number one. And there were guys that were literally coming in, working a 40-hour work week, and they were keeping up, and some of them were even beating me. And without going into all of the details, it's like that right there is an example of, there shouldn't be a badge of honor for like working a 60-hour work week if you're not like crushing it in terms of your closings, right? So all of this because I think that you'll have a much better experience when things are busy instead of being like, I'm swamped. I worked 70 hours this week. And it's like, well, you close like half of what the industry standard is. Like, where's the disconnect? I mean, Matt, as a team lead, do you see a lot of that? Or have you seen a lot of that?
Absolutely. Well,
Have you been that?
Yes, I am so guilty. On the flip side, I do have a lot of processes in place, though. I just have a lot of responsibility from all the agents on the team to managing transactions with my wife to business growth to recruiting to keeping my own sales numbers to if like say for example a kid has 2 balloons, I got enough balloons to start floating.
Right.
And then that was by choice. It wasn't like that didn't just happen. I accepted that was going to happen, and it's something part of real estate growth. And we have coaches in play that kind of help us go through that. Where maybe I want to make a left turn here and think that's the right decision, but get me back onto a straight path and give me what I actually need to do because he or she, coach wise, has already done this before and has accelerated past me. So if we're going like a tier 1 to tier 7 scenario, and let's say the teams are like tier 4 right now, how do I get from tier 4 to tier 5 and then to 6 and then to 7? We successfully got through tier 1 through 3. Now we're at 4. We've been kind of coasting at 4. How do I for the entire team and their production, how do I get us past 4? That's the portion where, just being totally blunt and honest, I don't have all the bells and whistles possible of knowledge, and I'm going to go to elsewhere to seek that to make sure I can give agents like Jennifer the best possible resources they can get to be able to accelerate their career, which ultimately accelerates the team, which ultimately provides more profit for everybody.
So, Jennifer, on this topic, I would love to hear your response, but base it more on what you experienced when you were in medical sales, since it is the majority of your sales experience at the moment. How would you identify whether or not a client is worth, to continuing to pursue? And the reason I ask this question is going back to agents saying I'm knee deep in appointments, so on and so forth, but then the closings aren't there. What I've seen on the lending side of things is that I find salespeople, they spend a good amount of time identifying a potential client, and then once they finally find one, they don't want to let it go, right? And I've learned the hard way that sometimes it's better off just to, I would always say throw it in the gutter and go find another. What do you typically sense or do in sales in general when you can identify that a client is no longer worth pursuing?
Good question. I'm going to go back to your first question,
Sure.
which was how do I identify or what do I do on the front end? My husband and I kind of have a terminology we use. It's a push-pull match. I'm not going to push you. I'm not going to pull you. I'm going to match your level of interest. So I'm not going to pull a client through a process that they're not interested in the timing that they feel like is comfortable for them. Then I will continue to match that level of cadence with them.
Right.
I think that really comes down to listening to what their needs are, right? Then there's going to be some that maybe, all right, I'm interested, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out, I'm in and out, right? I think that's also something where you can say you need to make sure that you're harnessing your time appropriately, right? So if you are doing a lot of different showings, or you're putting in a lot of time and effort and energy into said clients, how do you build that boundary to say, okay, I'm allocating X amount of time, and I'm happy to give some time to what their needs are, but if they're in and out, then circle back to them to ask them what their desired timeline is.
Right.
It really comes down to communication and being, I think, really transparent and authentic with people. I don't know, Matt, if you've experienced this, but just calling a lot of agents lately, you get somebody's voicemail and it's please just text or email me. Like, where's the art of actually picking up the phone and talking to somebody? And I think there's a huge value in having a actual dialogue and listening to what the other person has to say, not just telling them what you think is important and what your mission and agenda is, but listening to what's important to them. And I find that agent to agent, because it's please just text or email. And it's like, actually, let's just have a conversation.
Sure.
We're trying to both help people get to a win-win scenario for a business transaction. So it's probably behooves all of us to have a real dialogue.
It doesn't make any sense why an agent would even say that. Just to me, like personally, I don't understand why an agent would even say that. Okay, so I actually, to spin off of that, I had a interview with an agent yesterday who basically told me that she wants to work less, she doesn't want to make phone calls, but she has decent numbers. It just wasn't a fit immediately. Like respectfully, I didn't walk out, but like I knew from that as soon as that was said, it wasn't a fit for our team. Wasn't going to match what our, I don't know if demographic is the right word. It's not.
Culture.
Yeah, there we go. The correct culture for what our team has and what we're putting forth day in, day out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. So when an agent says, just call or text me, as Jenny was going through, the dialogue doesn't happen, the conversion doesn't happen, the moving the ball along doesn't happen. Just you can't read things through text or email. You can get data transferred, but you don't actually convey a message, if that makes sense.
What do you think it is about like going after what I would call like new business that is so, I don't know, like, all right, I know agents, some of which are on your team, that are so grasped close and tightly to like this, like, I'll just call it a list of like 10 potential buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And they would legitimately rather spend 4 hours chasing these 10 buyers that aren't interested than spending 4 hours chasing new potential buyers that might be 10 times more interested.
Few answers.
Yeah, what is that?
Personality type.
Mm-hmm.
Expectation themselves.
Okay.
Drive. And comfort.
I want to focus on the last one because here's the interesting thing, and I get this a lot on the lending side in my business, on why is it that people are so self-conscious about the idea of bothering someone, right? So I get this a lot. It's like, well, I talked to this client a few times and they seemed interested. I told them that I would follow back up, but I don't really want to bother them. And I think on the surface, the excuse becomes I don't want to bother them because I don't want them to tell me that they no longer want to work with me. But they clearly already are not super interested in working with you to begin with.
Yep.
So what is it? Is it like an ego thing? Is it an insecurity of like, God forbid a client was like, you know what? You're just following up way too much. I can't handle your level of professional persistence. Like,
I just really hate that you don't drop the ball.
right.
Yeah.
Like, so, is it, and here's my theory, and I would love to hear yours. I kind of feel like there's people out there that when they're the consumer, that they treat salespeople really shitty. And they think, I have like scolded salespeople or been rude to salespeople, and therefore I never want to be on the receiving end of the way that I treat salespeople, because even if something as simple as like walking into a shoe store, like if a guy comes up to me and he's like, hey, can I help you? I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm just looking. There are people that are like disgusted by that, right? And they have an attitude about it. That's my theory, is that like if you're the type of person that's like, oh, I don't want to bother anybody, it's like, how do you treat salespeople? Thoughts?
That's an interesting perspective. I'm going to jump in on
Yeah.
that. I had never thought of it like that before. When you brought up that question, it made me think of my head goes to that person's insecure with somebody coming back and telling them no. And so they're kind of in the linger stage, but the long linger is it's either a no or it's a not right now.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's a not right now, okay, then give it some space and go somewhere else.
Well, I love hearing no.
It's off my plate.
It's great.
Right? Like, that's what I don't understand.
Tell me yes, tell me no. I don't like the maybes.
If I make 10 calls and I get 2 yeses and 8 nos, great. I got 2 more
Winning.
yeses.
Winning.
Yeah. So maybe that's just a shout out for everyone to listen to. By making your phone calls, it's not always about successes. It's about clearing your pipeline.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I love throwing things away. Like, fun fact, yesterday evening, we just like cleaned up our back patio because it's finally getting cool enough now that, here in Texas, we could sit outside.
Yes.
And there were just like things that were kind of, these like little knickknacks and shit that you just accumulate. I'm like, we could throw this away. We could throw this away. We could throw this away. And I was just like throwing things away, and I love it. And that's how I look at like, call your clients, figure out what they're doing, and then, put them in the yes or no category because like the maybe isn't working.
I think you just helped me with actually the team. We need to utilize our pond more often. So like, let's say for example, you'll be the first one. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say you're making phone calls and all of a sudden, the lead's bad or it doesn't have a phone number and it's not attached to it. We don't have to delete the lead. We can put them move into the pond as soon as they get a notification that new numbers there or they're active
Right.
again. You're still gonna get the notification. Just move it to the pond and put yourself as a collaborator, but it doesn't sit in your bucket of leads that you're gonna be working. I think that's just the easiest way to clear everything up.
I like it.
Every month I go through my entire active, approvals, and I send out a text message and a phone call, and sometimes I'll do a bomb. And anytime anybody's like, not interested, we're not moving forward anymore, I'm like, great, let me know if there's anything that changes. And then because when I log on to my software system, like my first view is like the people that I'm considering like super active. And I just did it because I didn't just do it. I did it last week because we're in the beginning of September. And I think I took that thing from like 62. I looked at it today. I'm down to 51. I got rid of 11 people.
Perfect.
And I loved it. Felt great. And I'm not like, oh man, I got all these people that's the other part, going back to some of the gripes that I've heard. Then when we like say, well, this one's not legit, we're going to move this one. What is the paradigm where I'm like, okay, now I know exactly what's going on versus none of my buyers want to move forward. It's like, I have 51 current active clients. I killed 11 of them. I'm not looking at it going,
fuck, I lost 16.
I lost 11 people. Eeyore.
Well, let me ask you.
Hi, Joey
this
Chandler.
from a business perspective. So, if you can eliminate your 11 people, how much quicker can you move forward with your other clients and gain new clients, as opposed to spending the time on the in between maybe? Like your business is moving forward exponentially, and you're happier about it. You're not sitting there going like, oh, we're not quite sure. And you're spending a whole bunch of time, effort, and energy in the gray, as opposed to being like, okay, let's keep going.
Well, and again, this is the point I'm trying to, as I'm thinking of like 3 or 4 people right now, this is the point I'm trying to make, and I hope that this gets to any of them, is that I think that the problem is like, shit, now I have to go back out, and find new pieces of business because I did all this work on these other ones and now they're gone. And I just don't think it's like that, right? Like, you take a lead, you connect with the client, you have like a 20 or 30-minute phone conversation, and now all of a sudden, somehow in your mind, that deal's going to close.
That I don't get.
I don't either. I mean, just because of simply like the time and like, if it was that easy, everyone would just do it.
Yeah.
Right?
It'd be like South Park, and
it's
you'd
just
be
not
a real
how
estate
it
agent.
is. Yeah. And like, how does anybody think like, well, I made 10 calls today and I talked to 10 people, and now I'm just going to follow up with these 10 people every single day or every single week, and they're all going to close eventually. If they don't, it's not me, it's the market or whatever. It's the leads.
I'm going to do a little test on that, and I'm going to track it over 30 days to see what the call volume looks like based off new leads versus active leads versus what they're actually have been moved to let's not trash, pond, and see if conversion levels go up. Because I do guarantee actually. If there's less leads that are occupying their conscious or subconscious, I don't really know what it'd be. Brain of like, oh shit, I have all these people. Okay, I need to work these ones. I need to work this one. I need to work this one. Okay, I don't have time for other ones. I can't grab new leads. I can't get new business. I need to focus on these ones. And the anxiety goes up over that. Again, that's not how my brain works. I know it's not how your brain works either. It's not how yours works. But there are people who are like that in this industry.
That's what I mean. How do you change that as a team lead? That's the point I'm trying to make.
It's getting if they do not respond to you in the first 10 days and you're just not getting what you need out of it, and they're not moving forward, you need to put that to the pond. That's going to be something you can come back to. You can watch their activity, go back in there and check it. It just cannot be a front runner of dependable closing, because there's no dependable closing until let's call it
like
3 days from closing, the CD's out.
Right. I'll bet if you looked at everybody on the team, I would envision that one of the probably the lowest conversion real estate agent is probably the highest closer in terms of volume.
Say it again.
The lowest conversion on leads
Yeah.
is probably the highest closer in general.
Well, yeah, he's outside.
So you've got people that are taking, 100 calls a week, whatever you have you, and they're obviously closing the most amount of business opposed to the person who's taking the lowest amount of leads. Their conversion is probably the highest.
Yeah.
But like, okay, cool. You took 10 leads and closed one deal. Like, I'd rather you take 100 and close 2.
Okay, yeah, I'll use Spyglass for an example on Zillow, okay?
Yeah.
I've claimed the most amount of Zillow leads. Okay? My metrics look like crap.
Right.
I have the most closings.
Yeah. So
I
what
have
do we
like,
want
I
here?
have like I think 42 leads I've grabbed from Zillow over the past from year to date,
Right.
and I've closed 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Zillow doesn't like that because the 12 to the 42.
Well,
I'm
because
like,
in their mind, you're leaving money on the table.
yeah, I'm like I think we have 59 agents on Zillow Flex. I think I'm like 57th
Right.
because that's another part. It's
Yeah, but then how are they going to praise the guy who's taken one transaction and closing it? He has
Number one.
100% closing transaction.
and he's the number one agent right now.
Well, I mean,
That's
but
bullshit.
again,
Yeah.
but like that's not what Zillow wants either. That's not what anybody wants.
Yeah, because he has a 100% lender introduction, which is where I get dinged.
I would look at
Sorry,
the profit.
Johnny.
I would look at the profitability though. I would guarantee that you're more profitable to Zillow than
Well, yeah. Well, I'm more profitable on the brokerage side of things, 100%.
even if they get the loan, if they're closing one
They've
transaction.
never got a loan from me.
Yeah, but
Because
even, I'm
you
saying
get
even if
you
they
get
get
all of
both
them.
sides, even if this other person we're talking about, even if they're getting both sides
yes.
on, you're still going to be more profitable if they're only closing like one
That's
or two
Kumar.
transactions. Right. Which that Matt Kumar, shout out to you, man. We're trying to get you to the barbecue and mingle to have a beer. You're literally on my calendar. I just keep forgetting to reach out. I'm going to cut that and make sure it gets out there, and we'll tag him in it.
Perfect.
Anything else that we're seeing coming? We're excited about 25. We're excited about rate cuts.
I kind of want to talk to her about leads real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so we haven't got you on board on the leads yet.
Okay.
What are you what are your expectations? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to in lead scenario? And just give me your thoughts. So like for more on let's say there's an agent who works with Banana Realty and they've been working SOI referral, maybe grab a lead that hits their website maybe 5 or 6 times a year. They're like, cool, I might close one of those. Like, what are you excited about of what the leads product that we provide plus Spyglass and everything else?
Yeah, so I am very excited for the opportunity to have leads. I've not worked leads previously. I've just done Sphere. But I think that, again, when you start with a good foundation, you've got a good team and a fantastic process of how to go through the leads process. If you are working the system and working the process, you can turn that buyer, that customer, into another referral source, right? And now you just had somebody who came through on their lead source who's now going to be a potential referral source for additional business from friends, family, et cetera.
Yep.
And so I think just being able to think of it as, I don't think of any piece of business, whether it's Sphere or lead, as single transaction. It's a growing relationship through the entire process that continues to go over time, right? And so, my goal is to be one of the agents that has treated people extraordinarily well and has a history of doing that you get a phone call and it's like, oh, so-and-so from so-and-so called me to tell, and I have no idea who this person is out of the blue, but it's like, oh, you treated, Johnny and Sue really great, and we want to work with you.
Kind of just gave me an epiphany on something. So we have those firms that we created, that basically Matt created, and now I'm doing it with them, okay? Why don't we create some kind of firm with client? I'm going to sound so dumb when I say this, but
All right, that's what we already talked about. So you're
Okay.
going after their financial advisors,
No.
their insurance.
similar, but no. Having the meetings with them, talking about their dreams or goals are. Hey, what are you struggling with in life right now? I'm not just a real estate agent. I want to be a close friend. I want to be kind of person you go to for any questions you have. I'm really looking for a job relocation right now. I'm like kind of sick of working for Tesla. I'm trying to go to this place, such and such. Well, actually, you know what? I actually have a lot of connections with clients that work in those scenarios. Let me have some conversations and then get back to you. Have that conversation. They get super happy. You selfishly, but you're still being a good person. You may get more referrals out of that. You made them really happy. They're going to have a really good experience with you. And maybe it doesn't have to be called a firm. You can call it something else, whatever it is.
Well, it's just an annual review with your client, which, I don't.
Well, annual review is a little more formal.
I mean, not necessarily. You can call in and check in. I mean, it can be an annual review, but you don't have to call it that. But it is something I know real estate agents are horrible at.
Horrible.
I mean, I can't tell you how
Guilty.
many times when I'm doing reviews with my clients, and then a lot of them, and I've already said this, a lot of them when they're thinking about doing anything real estate related, I'd say half of them don't even remember who their agent was, but they remember me. And then of the other half that actually do remember their agent, it's like I'll flat out ask them like, hey, do you want a second opinion? Do you want another referral? Because if it's an agent that I just don't have a relationship with, they clearly haven't been keeping up with me. I'm like super ick to most agents. So if I'm following up with agents and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'll flip that buyer. I'll flip that buyer to somebody who works with me. And I'm shocked at the amount of buyers that are like, yeah, I kind of don't even remember him or her. Yeah, that's fine. I'll be happy. It literally happened before I came in here. And it's in Ohio. I sent over to two of my real estate agents. Yeah, it is. So
We'll be right back.
But
we'll tell you that story in a second.
yeah. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that agents don't do the follow-ups, not because I think going back to the sales thing, I think that they're concerned that someone's going to say like, you're bothering me. Like, I don't want to bother them. It's like, you're just calling, you're checking in, we've talked about this. You're asking about who their financial advisor is, who their CPA is, who their sphere of influence is. And then obviously if they do need anything real estate related, well, sure, you're there to help, but 9 out of 10 times, they're probably not going to need anything at that moment. And that's okay. That's all right. You're just checking in.
Yep. I had a thought. I just lost it.
Well, you wanted to do a firm with, your past clients, but really you're just trying to do a consultation, trying to make sure that they have everything fixed. And that's kind of going back to what I said where, I'll call clients, say, hey, and immediately they're like, we have a low rate. We're good. We're good. I'm like, oh yeah, that's fantastic.
I know my thought was.
Go for it.
Okay, so sometimes when we're like, there's the agent has the fear or the thought of bugging someone.
Mm-hmm.
I had this brought up to me in coaching when we were with Tom Ferry. Probably actually the best thing I got out of them was if you're not making the phone calls to help to provide them value, you're actually probably hurting them even worse because they may even go a different direction, make the decision that that the professional in that industry is not providing. Mm-hmm. So you're ultimately hurting them by not making the phone call and having that fear. You not making the call creates additional problems for them.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like nowadays with hands-free stuff in the car and everything like that, like if you catch anybody at the right time and they're just driving, like they'll have a conversation
Dude,
with you.
A CRM needs to create that.
To figure out when someone's in the car?
Yeah, figure out when you're in a car. This is our custom AI list for you to call today.
Yeah.
When you're in the car, we're going to call this list for you.
That's actually not a terrible idea. I mean, I'm sure a phone can indicate when,
my phone does it right now at the Tesla.
I mean, if
Coolest thing in the world.
If you're going over like 35 miles an hour, we know you're not on a jog.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, yeah.
It could be taxiing on a runway.
That's true. I mean, but then
we're gonna start your calls while you're at seat 8F.
Yeah, but you're talking about dialing out.
Yeah.
I'm talking about tracking the client.
Wait.
Can you imagine if
that's gonna go? That's gonna the whole like the Meta lawsuit that has popped up for tracking all the. That's gonna pop up again. I'm talking about
I'm talking
you went
about
creepier than I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm really big brothering right now.
Yes. I'm just saying, as soon as you enter the car, like there's an automation built in when you enter the car. These people are on your list, and you need to be called. These are your past clients.
Let me ask you this: when you get in the car,
yeah,
do you ever listen to music, or are you always on the phone?
Always on the phone.
You're always on the phone with the same people, or different people?
Different.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm on the phone a lot. But you know what I do try to avoid is like, I feel like I'm much better on the phone when I'm not driving. Because especially with me being the numbers guy, anytime I get on the phone with somebody always is like, well, what's the payment going to be on that? And I'm like, well, I'm going to actually have to look at the file for that. I'm going to
have to pull over real quick.
Right. So I do try to avoid having like certain conversations, but I do find myself on the phone a lot, but I'm better if I'm not driving.
Yeah, it's for us when I'm driving. Hey, there was a property that popped up on 123 Main Street. Yeah, never seen that property before, but
right.
I thought you were the expert. I'm like, don't know every 16,000
Yeah, I'm in my car. Yeah. Well, and then so therefore, if they call me, I don't feel bad about that. But I don't like because I see a lot of times when, and I used to do this a lot, and I avoid it now. Where, you know, I'm getting ready or something like that. And then all of a sudden I get in my car and I'm like, oh, I'll call this client. I don't do that anymore. I do not outbound in my car anymore because I find myself getting like hung up with a question that I can't answer. And then it's like, well, why'd you call me?
I have this thing with Kaylee. So like, we started this actually yesterday. So I have this really bad habit because as soon as I walk in my house, I lose coverage. But my driveway, I have coverage. And the stop sign at my, the first stop sign in our subdivision, I have coverage. So I'm pretty sure everyone in the neighborhood either knows I'm a real estate agent now because I stop at that and I make the phone calls and people always pass me and they're like, you okay? I just give them a little thumbs up. Fine. Yep. Just cool.
You gotta get a sign on your car, bro.
I honestly I probably should.
Your neighborhood's like mine.
Let's get it wrapped.
The same. It's the same as RO. Yeah.
Certain places, and you're like, wow, I can only talk right here.
Yep. So when you go to Northgate Ranch, you go up the uphill, and before you hit the roundabout to turn the right turn, if you stop short of that, there is perfect coverage. So I'll sit there, and Kaylee be like, "When the F are you coming home? You've been sitting in the same spot for 45 minutes." I'm like, "I'm trying to finish my calls so I can be with my kid when I get in the house."
Here in South Austin, we always have coverage.
I'm not even gonna go there.
Anything else that anyone wants to cover?
Good here.
That's it?
Yeah.
So we've made our predictions on the market, anything like that. Any kind of shout outs or call outs that y'all want to put out to any clients or anything like that?
Mine's more on the recruiting standpoint. If you're an agent and you're wanting leads, or you feel like your quote unquote schedule is busy, or you want to systemize your process a little bit more and understand what a day-to-day schedule looks like, and you want help with that, feel free, down below in the link, there's going to be our website. Feel free to click that. You can reach out to me. There's our agent / recruiting video in there. You can click that, go ahead and take a peek at it, and would love to have a conversation.
I mean, we're approaching with rates coming down. I can't believe I'm going to say this because I traditionally focus on purchase business, but if you're one of my past clients, you'll be getting a call from me in the near future here because we are going to finally see those refinance opportunities become available. And the other thing that I intend to do is there have been a lot of clients over the last 24 months that have absolutely adored me, but unfortunately had to go with the builder to take advantage of the incentives that were associated with using their preferred lender. I will be calling you as well because, well, let's face it, you probably had a horrible experience with that lender, and that lender is never going to call you anyway. So I'll be reaching out to you to talk about how we can reduce those monthly payments and either look at that as a monthly savings or, heck, maybe even removing PMI and paying the home off sooner.
Perfect. I want to say thanks to Matt and Kaylee Kemps for bringing me on Lone Wolf Realty Group. It's been great. I've learned a lot. I'm very excited for the technology pieces that we're putting in place right now, and I think that we're going to have a fantastic year.
And where's that listing that you got that you and your husband built, this beautiful home? Tell us about it.
Beautiful, brand new home, 217 Fall Drive in Georgetown. It is 3,600 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bath on more than an acre and a quarter. Cul-de-sac flat lot with fantastic oak trees. It's gorgeous.
So with you being the seller, is the seller offering buy-side commissions?
Absolutely. So there's about $56,000 worth of flex cash that the buyer could use for a variety of purposes.
You stop.
I'm telling the truth, Matt. So a lot of options there. Beautiful home. Love to have a fantastic buyer.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we get that one out. It was a pleasure having you on, Mr. Kemps. As always, 2 Matts, 1 market. We did it again.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.